How was your day? Maybe it just slipped past you. Nothing went wrong. You blinked and somehow it was already dark again. There's a man in the old Irish stories who lost more time than anyone. 3 years, he thought. He was wrong. If today felt like it vanished, Oisín would understand. So let yourself slow down now. The wind is salt and cold here. The grass is wet. Somewhere ahead, a white horse is already running across the water, and will follow it gently into sleep. But first, see how it ends. A green field, small men straining at a great stone, and one tall rider leaning down to help the way he always would. The strap snaps, he touches the ground, and in one breath, 300 years find him at last. Stay with that. We'll come back to it slowly. How long is too long to be away? Oisín only meant to visit. He thought he had been gone the length of 3 short happy years. But the hall of his father was a ruin. The fires were ash. The hounds were gone. Everyone he loved had been dead for centuries. Maybe you know a smaller version of that feeling. You step away for a moment, you come back, and quietly, without asking, everything has moved on without you. This is what we do here. Every week, one old story, one quiet night. Something that happened long ago, and still knows something about now. So get comfortable now. Soften the pillow. Let your shoulders down. If you drift off before the end, that's all right. The old gods have watched mortals sleep before. This is only the beginning of his story. The longest road, the strangest land, the last morning, all of that is still ahead. But not tonight. Tonight, just this. If tonight feels like somewhere good to land, subscribe. We'll be here next week. Another story, another night like this. Now back to the shore. Long before any of that, there was a morning, a hunt by the lake, hounds in the reeds, spears on shoulders, and the best company in all of Ireland. They were the Fianna, warriors, poets, hunters, and at their head walked Fianna, Oisín's father, grey now but still the tallest shadow on any hill. Oisín was Fianna's son, and his own kind of man. He carried a spear, yes, but he also carried a harpkey, because he made songs as easily as he made war. This was his whole world. The lake, the hunt, his father's voice, the fire at night. He did not know it yet, but he was about to leave all of it behind. Because out on the lake that morning, the mist began to move strangely. Not with the wind, against it, as if something underneath the water had decided to rise. The hounds went quiet. The men went still. And from the brightening water, a shape came toward the shore, gold and impossible, and looking straight at Oisín. Let's stay in that first morning a little longer. Before the woman, before the sea, before the loss. Just the lake, and the hunt, and the people Oisín loved. The Fianna were not an army. They were something rarer. Men chosen for speed, for courage, for the songs they knew by heart. To belong to them was to belong to Ireland itself. To join them, a man had to do impossible things. Run through the forest without snapping a twig, pull a thorn from his foot at full sprint. Know 12 poems by heart. Oisín had passed every test years ago. He was Fianna's son, after all. But it was never his name that men remembered. It was his voice, the way he could turn a battle into a song. And Fianna, his father, was the still center of it all. Gray-haired now, scarred, slower than he once was, but when Fianna spoke, the whole hill leaned in to hear him. There was an old closeness between them, father and son who had hunted the same hills for a lifetime. Oisín could not imagine a world without that gray shadow walking just ahead of him. Remember that closeness. Hold it somewhere, because of everything Oisín will lose. This is the loss that will follow him the furthest, across the sea and across the years. That morning the hunt had gone well. A stag taken at the water's edge, the hounds rewarded, the men content, the kind of ordinary good day you only notice once it's gone. They sat by the water to rest. Someone passed bread. Someone asked Oisín for a song, and out past the reeds, the lake was as smooth and bright as polished bronze. That was when the light on the water changed, slowly. Not a cloud passing, a brightening, as if the morning sun had somehow slipped beneath the lake and was rising back up through it. The hounds noticed first. Their ears went flat, not afraid, exactly. More like they had remembered something older than themselves, something that had a right to come up out of deep water. Then the Fianna stood too, spears half raised, not yet afraid, only watchful. Even Fionn, who had seen every strange thing Ireland could offer, narrowed his eyes against the brightness. And out of that light came a horse, white, but not the white of any horse they knew. A white that seemed to carry its own daylight, hooves touching the surface of the water as if it were a road. And on the horse, a woman, golden-haired, robed in sea green, a faint light living at the edges of her skin. She rode as though she had crossed water her whole life. Maybe she had. The Fianna had faced giants and armies without flinching, but not one of them stepped forward now. Some things you don't meet with a spear, you meet them with stillness. She came to the shallows and stopped. The horse stood on the water, and her sea-gray eyes moved across the whole company, past the warriors, past the great Fionn himself, and settled on Oisín. Maybe you know that feeling, when a room is full of people and somehow a stranger looks straight past all of them and finds you, as if they had come a very long way only for that. "I am Neve," she said. The voice carried over the water without effort. "Neve of the golden hair, daughter of the king of the land of the young, and I have come a long way for you, Oisín." Oisín had never seen her before, he was sure of it. And yet his name in her mouth did not feel like a surprise. It felt like something he had been half waiting to hear his whole life. "I have heard your songs across the water," she said, "in a land you have never seen. Songs travel further than men do, Oisín. Yours reached me, and I came to find the voice. A king's daughter from a land beyond the sea, who had crossed the world because of a song. Oisín, the poet, of all people, found he had no words at all. And beside him, Fionn felt something cold move through his chest. Not fear of the woman, a father's older instinct, the sense, sudden and certain, that he was about to lose his son. "Come with me," Neve said, and there it was, the choice, the one this whole story turns on. Said so softly it barely sounded like the most enormous thing anyone had ever asked him. "Come to Tir na Nog, the land of the young, where the trees never lose their blossom and the harp never stops, and no one you love ever grows old or sick or cold." Listen to that promise carefully. No one ever grows old. It sounds like the kindest gift in the world. Stay with it, because it is also the trap. He just couldn't see it yet. Oisín looked at the golden land in her eyes, then he turned and looked at his father. Gray, scarred, already older than he used to be, already one day going to be gone. And maybe that was part of it. A land where nothing you love is ever taken away. For a man watching his father age, that is a very hard thing to refuse. Fionn did not beg. That was not his way. He only said, low enough that only Oisín could hear it, "If you go to that land, my son, be very careful how you ever come back." It was a strange thing for a father to say. Not "don't go, just be careful how you come back." Oisín didn't understand it. He would. 300 years too late, he would. Niamh waited. She did not rush him. She of all people knew what time was worth and what it cost. The horse stood on the water, patient as the tide. And then Oisín did the thing that begins every great story and ends so many. He chose the door he could not see through. He stepped off the shore he knew toward the bright water. He waded out and took her hand. Warm, real, glowing faintly at the edges like the last light of a long evening, and he climbed up onto the white horse behind her. From the shore, Fionn watched his son settle onto a horse that stood on water. He did not call out. He only lifted one hand, not a wave, a blessing, a goodbye he hoped wasn't one. Oisín looked back once. The lake, the hounds, the men, his gray father with his hand in the air. He told himself it was not goodbye. He was only going to visit. He believed that. This is the part the old story wants you to feel. He thought it was a visit. He thought he would be back by the change of seasons. He took nothing with him, not even a proper goodbye. The horse turned its bright head toward the west, toward the open sea beyond the lake, and it began, very gently, to walk faster across the surface of the water. The mountains around the lake slid past. The reeds, the hunting grounds, the whole green map of Oisín's life. And then the lake opened into the river, and the river to the wide gray sea. Ahead of them now was only water. Gray, rolling, endless, the kind of sea that swallows ships, But the white horse did not slow. It ran out onto the open ocean as if it were a meadow. Oisín held on. The wind tore at his cloak, salt spray stung his face, and below the glowing hooves, the deep gray water of the Atlantic rolled past, fathoms down, and never once touched them. "Hold to me," Niamh said over the wind, "and keep your eyes ahead. The sea between the worlds shows you things. Some of them are not for you. Look forward, Oisín, always forward." It was good advice. The kind of advice you remember at the wrong moment years later. But for now, Oisín did as she said. He looked forward, and the gray sea began, slowly, to change. Let's pause here, out on the water, and wonder why the Irish told stories like this at all. A perfect land across the western sea. They were not the only people to dream it. For people on the very western edge of Europe, the sunset fell into the ocean every night. Beyond it lay nothing they could reach, so they filled that nothing with their kindest imagining. Tír na nÓg was one name for it. The land of the young. There were others, the plain of honey, the island of apples, always west, always beautiful, always just out of reach. And notice what they longed for. Not gold, not power. They longed for a place where no one they loved would grow old. That tells you what hurt them most. The same thing that hurts us. So Oisín was riding into the oldest wish people ever made, a land with no goodbyes. The storytellers knew something, though. They always gave that wish a price. We'll find his. Back on the water, the sea was no longer gray. It had turned the color of warm honey under the strange, unmoving light, and the things Niamh had warned about began to drift up out of it. A young woman went by on the waves, holding a golden apple, smiling at nothing. Then a hound, white with red ears, chasing something Oisín couldn't see. The sea was full of stories, all hurrying past. Oisín wanted to turn his head and follow each one, but he remembered Niamh's words, "Look forward," so he held to her and let the wonders slide past the corners of his eyes. And then, far ahead, the mist drew back like a curtain, and Oisín saw for the first time the land Niamh had promised him. The land of the young, rising gold out of the sea. It was greener than Ireland in May. The light was the soft gold of a long summer evening that never ended, and from somewhere far inland, faint and sweet, came the sound of a harp. The horse slowed as it reached the bright shore and stepped at last onto solid ground. Oisín felt grass under the hooves instead of water. He had crossed over. He was in the other world now. Niamh slid down from the horse and turned to him, glowing softly in the gold light. "Welcome," she said simply. "You're home now, Oisín, for as long as you want to be. For as long as you want to be." He didn't hear the catch in it. How could anyone not want to stay in a place like this? That was exactly how the years would do their quiet work. A road of pale stone led inland, lined with blossoming trees. And along it, from the bright towers, people were already coming out to meet them, tall, golden, unhurried, glad in a calm and ancient way. They led Oisín and Niamh toward the heart of that country, toward a hall of white marble, where Niamh's father, the king of the land of the young, was waiting to meet the mortal his daughter had crossed the sea for. The hall was the most beautiful thing Oisín had ever stood inside. Columns like frozen moonlight, a table that ran on further than he could see, and every face along it turned, calm and curious, toward him. The king rose, tall as a doorway, robed in white and gold, his beard like spun light. He looked at Oisín a long moment. Then he smiled, and the whole hall seemed to warm. "My daughter has chosen well," the king said, "a poet. We have always loved poets here. Stay, Oisín, eat at our table, be one of us. The land of the young opens its gates to you." So the feast began. There was music Oisín had never heard, in scales that seemed older than any harp in Ireland. There was laughter, soft and unending, and there was Niamh beside him, glowing, glad. And here's where time first slipped, because no clock ran in that hall. No candle burned down. No one yawned and said the hour was late. The feast simply lasted as long as it wished to. When at last Oisín stepped outside, the light was exactly as it had been. Soft, golden, evening-colored. He could not have said whether he had feasted for an hour or for a week, and it did not seem to matter. That is the quietest danger of all, isn't it? Not a sudden trap. Just a place so gentle that the days stop announcing themselves, where nothing ever pushes you to count. Niamh showed him the whole of her country. Silver rivers you could drink from and feel young. Hills where the grass sang faintly in the wind. Orchards that wore blossom and fruit in the very same hour. And it was good, truly good. This is important. Oisín was not tricked into misery. He was happy. Deeply, easily happy, in a way that left no edges to push against. That was the whole point. In time, though time meant little here, Oisín and Niamh were married. The whole shining country came to the wedding. The king blessed them, and Oisín became, in name and in heart, a man of the land of the young. They were given an orchard of their own. A low white house, a silver stream, apple trees in endless bloom. And there, in time, came children, bright as their mother, with their father's gray-green eyes. There was a boy, strong and quick, and there was a daughter Oisín loved past all reason. They called her Plurna Mumban, the flower of women. She had her mother's faint glow and her father's way with a song. Oisín would carry her on his shoulders through the orchard and sing her the songs of Ireland, the hunt by the lake, the fire in the hall. His father, gray and tall, old songs for a child who had never seen the land they came from. And there, did you catch it? In the middle of all that happiness, he was singing about home, about his father. The orchard was perfect. But part of Oisín had already begun, very quietly, to look back across the sea. He didn't speak of it, not for a long while. What was there to say? He had everything. A wife who loved him, children who glowed, a country with no winter. Only a small, stubborn ache he couldn't name. Maybe you know that ache too. The one that visits when everything is fine, especially when everything is fine. A quiet pull towards something you left behind, that no amount of happiness quite fills. Niamh saw it, of course. She had crossed the sea for this man. She knew his face better than her own. She saw the way his songs had turned westward. And it frightened her, though she said nothing yet, because Niamh knew the thing Oisín did not. She knew how time ran differently on the two sides of the sea. She knew that the home he was beginning to miss might already be slipping out of the world. She wanted to tell him. She also wanted fiercely to keep him. So she did what frightened people often do. She said nothing and hoped the ache would pass. For a while, a long while it seemed to. And so the years went on, though no one counted them. The children grew slowly in the slow way of that land. The orchard bloomed, and Oisín mostly forgot the ache, mostly. But aches like that don't really leave. They wait for a quiet evening, a certain slant of light, a song half remembered, and then they come back, stronger than before. Oisín's was waiting still. One golden evening, a stranger came to the shore of the land of the young, riding hard, a young woman weeping, on a foam-flecked horse, looking for any warrior who would help her. Oisín was the one who came to her, the warrior of Ireland, with the harp at his throat and the old hunting muscle still in his arms. "Tell me," he said, "what has happened? Who has hurt you?" She was a princess of a distant island, she said. A Fomorian giant had carried her off. A creature of the cold sea, gray as slate, with one terrible eye. He had locked her in a fortress of black rock, and meant to make her his. She had escaped just once, just far enough to beg for help, but she could not go back alone. No man on her own island had dared face the giant. So she had ridden across the worlds, looking for someone who would. And something woke in Oisín that the orchard had let sleep, the old fire of the Fianna, but the reflex of a man who had spent his life standing between the weak and the cruel. He stood. "Then I will go," he said. Niamh did not try to stop him. She knew this part of him. It was part of why she loved him. But she watched him ready the white horse with a quiet, careful fear she did not put into words. He kissed his children. He held Plurna Mumban a moment longer than the others. "I'll be back before the blossom falls," he told her. In that land, of course, the blossom never fell. He should have wondered at that. Then Oisín mounted the white horse, and the princess rode beside him, and they turned away from the golden land toward the cold and stormy edges of the other world, where the giant kept his black fortress. The further they rode, the less golden the world became. The grass grayed, the light thinned. A cold wind found them. Even in the land of the young, it seemed, there were darker corners, places the perpetual evening did not warm. Here's a thing the old stories know. Even paradise has its far country. Even the kindest land keeps a cold shore somewhere. and Oisín was riding straight toward it, the way warriors always do. At last they came to the seacoast of that bleak country, and out on the water, on an island of black stone half hidden in rain and spray, stood the fortress, dark, silent, waiting. The white horse did not hesitate. It carried Oisín out across the heaving gray water as easily as it had crossed the golden sea. Hooves striking the wave tops, the black island growing closer through the rain. They reached the island's edge. Oisín left the princess and the horse on a ledge of safe rock. "Whatever you hear," he told her, "do not come in after me. This is mine to do." Then he turned to the iron gate. The gate was barred from within. Oisín set his shoulder to it, the old strength rising, and heaved. The iron groaned, the salt-rotted timber behind it cracked, and slowly, with a sound like a sea cave breathing, the gate gave way. Inside, the fortress was cold and echoing, dripping black walls, torches guttering in the damp, and somewhere ahead, deep in the dark, a slow, heavy breathing, like a tide drawing back over stones. Stay with this. It's a quiet moment before a loud one. A warrior alone in the dark, listening to something far larger than himself breathe. Whatever fear he felt, he kept walking toward it. The hall opened into a great cold chamber, and there, in the center, the breathing thing turned to face him, the Fomorian giant, twice the height of a man, one heavy eye, black and wet, fixing on the intruder. The giant did not roar. That was the frightening part. It simply looked at Oisín the way a man looks at a fly that has come in through the window, mildly annoyed, already certain how this would end. Then it reached for its club, an iron-banded trunk of black wood, taller than Oisín, and swung. The air screamed. Oisín threw himself aside, and the club struck the floor where he had stood, and the whole island shook. This was nothing like the battles of his youth. No glory in it, no songs, just a cold room, a thing the size of a house, and the simple animal need to not be where the club came down. But Oisín had not lived a soft life before the orchard. He was fast, faster than anything that size could follow. He ducked under the next swing, drove his spear into the giant's thigh, and rolled away again into the shadows. Now the giant roared, not in fear, in fury that this small thing had dared to mark it. It turned, club whirling, and the fight became a storm of stone dust and torchlight in the dark. We'll leave the worst of it in the dark, where the old story leaves it too. What matters is that it was long and hard, and that more than once Oisín was sure he was about to die on that cold black floor, far from the sun. But he thought of the princess on the rocks outside. He thought of his own daughter, glowing in the orchard. He thought of his father, who never once stepped back from a hard thing, and he found one more push in himself. He let the giant swing, and this time did not dodge away. He stepped inside the swing, in close where the club could not reach, and drove his spear up, with all his weight, into the great single eye. The giant fell, slowly the way great things fall, first a stagger, then a lean, then the whole weight of it coming down. The floor split, the torches went out, and then there was only Oisín in the dark, breathing. He found the princess's people deeper in the fortress, others the giant had taken, locked away in the cold. He broke their doors, he led them out, blinking, into the gray daylight, alive, free, going home. The princess wept again, but differently now. She took his bloodied hands and called him the bravest man in any world. And Oisín, tired to the bone, felt something he had almost forgotten in the soft orchard. He felt useful. He felt like himself. That feeling matters. Hold on to it. Because in the soft and golden land of the young, Oisín had been happy, but he had not been needed. And a part of him, it turned out, had been quietly starving for that. He rode the white horse back across the calming sea, the princess and her people safe behind him. And as the golden light of the land of the young rose again on the horizon, his heart was full, and quietly, secretly troubled. Niamh ran to the shore when she saw him coming. She held him a long time, feeling the new cuts under his tunic, saying nothing about them. She had her husband back. That was all she let herself think. But that night, if you could call any hour in that changeless light a night, Oisín lay awake. The battle had stirred the silt at the bottom of him, and all the old faces of home came drifting up. His father's voice, the smoke of the hall, the cold, clean smell of a Loch Lane morning. The hounds, the rough, loud, mortal company of men who would, every one of them, someday die. He missed even that. especially that. Isn't that the strangest part of longing? He missed the very thing the land of the young had saved him from. He missed the aging, the endings, the ache of a world where things are lost, because that was the world he was from. In the soft days that followed, he tried to bury it. He played with his children. He walked with Neve. He let the orchard's peace settle over him again. And for a while, the way these things go, it almost worked. But the headland kept calling him. There was a high cliff at the western edge of Tir na Nog, above the open sea, the sea that lay between this world and Ireland. And Oisín began to go there, often alone. He would stand there at the changeless gold of evening and look east, across the water, toward a land he could not see, and he would imagine it. The green hills, the smoke, his father, surely grown very old by now, but surely still there. Surely. He did not know. That was the cruelty of it. He had no way to know how the years had run on the far side of the sea. He only knew he had been gone, he thought, about 3 years. Surely his father was still alive. Surely. 3 years, remember that number. He believed it completely. 3 short years of feasts and orchards and slow golden days. It is one of the saddest small mistakes anyone in any story ever made. One evening Neve found him there. She came up quietly and stood beside him at the cliff's edge, and for a long while neither of them spoke. The sea breathed below, the thorn tree creaked, and then she said his name. "You're looking east again," she said. Not an accusation, just a sad, gentle truth, laid down softly between them. Oisín didn't deny it. He couldn't. He had never been able to lie to her. "I have to see it," he said at last. "Just once. Just to know it's still there. My father. The hall. I'll come straight back, Niamh. I swear it. I need to see home with my own eyes." And Neve closed her eyes, because now she had to choose. To keep her secret and keep him, or to tell him the truth she had hidden so long and risk losing him to it. Stay with her here. This is harder than any giant. She told him part of it. "Time is not the same there as here," she said carefully. "It runs faster on the far side of the sea. You may not find things as you left them, Oisín. The world you remember, it may have moved on." But he did not really hear it. That's the thing about a heart set on something. The warning went past him like wind. "Then I'll go quickly," he said, "there and back, before anything can change. Please, Neve, let me go." And Neve, who loved him too much to cage him, bowed her head. "Then take the white horse," she said. "He knows the way between the worlds. He will carry you safely there and safely home." She paused. "If you let him. If you let him." 3 small words. She would say more about them in the morning, the one rule, the single forbidden thing, but for now she only looked at her husband as if memorizing him, as if she already knew. They walked back to the orchard together in the golden dusk that was always dusk, and Oisín's heart was light for the first time in a long while. He was going home. He had no idea what those words would come to mean. That last evening with his family, Oisín held them close. Plur Namban asked where he was going. "To my father's land," he said. "I'll bring you back a song from it," she made him promise. He did. He meant it. Let's pause again on this last quiet evening and think about what the Irish meant by a land where time runs differently. Because it wasn't just a clever twist, it came from something they truly felt about the other world. In the old Irish belief, the other world sat right alongside our own. Just out of reach, through a lake, a mist, a fairy hill. And in those places, the rules of time loosened. A night of dancing could cost you 100 years. There are dozens of these tales. A musician follows a light into a hill, plays one set of tunes, and steps back out to find his village full of strangers and his own name carved on an old grave. The same warning, told again and again. And maybe the reason the warning repeats is that it's true in a quieter way. Step too far out of your own life, into a dream, a faraway place, a long absence, and you may come back to find it has moved on without you. So the people who first told Oisín's story already knew how it had to end. They had felt that loss in smaller ways themselves. They were not warning him, they were warning us. Gently, the way you're being warned now. Morning came to the land of the young, or what passed for morning, the gold simply growing a shade brighter, and Neve led Oisín out to where the white horse stood waiting, saddled, its mane drifting like underwater weed. And now Neve gave him the rule, the single forbidden thing. She took his face in both her hands and made him look at her, and she said it slowly, so he could not miss it. "Whatever happens," she said, "whatever you see, whatever they ask of you, do not get down from this horse. Do not let your foot touch the ground of Ireland. Not once, not for anything. Promise me, Oisín." There it is. The forbidden thing. So small, so simple, don't touch the ground. Every old story has one rule like this, and every listener already feels the cold little certainty of how it's going to be broken. "I promise," Oisín said. And he meant it, the way we always mean these promises completely and without understanding them. "I won't get down, there and back. I'll keep my feet on the horse the whole way." Niamh stepped back. Her children gathered around her, the small one with white flowers in her hair reaching up toward her father one last time, and Oisín looked down at all of them, glowing in the gold, and almost did not go. But the pull of home was old and strong. He blew a kiss to his daughter. He held Niamh's eyes a heartbeat longer, and then he turned the white horse west, toward the cliff and the sea, and let it run. The horse reached the cliff and did not slow. It leapt out, over the edge, over the drop, and landed running on the surface of the sea, and carried Oisín out onto the bright water, away from the land of the young. He looked back only once. The golden land was already small behind him, glowing on the horizon like a low warm star. Niamh was a bright point on the cliff. He raised a hand, then the mist took it all away. And now the long ride home. The horse ran east and the gold faded behind, and the sea turned its ordinary gray again. The same crossing as before, but every mile of it carrying Oisín toward a worse truth than he could imagine. This time the sea showed him no wonders, no golden women, no red-eared hounds, only the gray roll of the water and the cry of true ocean birds. The closer he came to the mortal world, the more ordinary, and the colder it all grew. And then, far ahead, low on the horizon, a green line. Land, Ireland. Oisín's heart leapt up like a boy's. There it was, home, still there, still green. He bent low over the horse's neck and willed it faster. The horse carried him up onto the familiar shore, the gray gold sand, the dark wet rocks, the low green headlands. He was back. He was standing, on the white horse, on the soil of Ireland at last, and he laughed out loud with joy. But even there, in that first happy moment, something was already wrong. He couldn't name it yet. The shore was the same, and yet the air felt different, thinner, somehow, as if the land itself had forgotten his name. He rode inland, toward the hills he knew, toward the road that led to his father's hall. And as he rode, the wrongness grew. The forests were in different places. New stone walls crossed old hunting grounds. He did not remember any of it. He told himself he was misremembering. 3 years is long enough to forget a few turns in a road, but 3 years does not move a forest. 3 years does not raise a wall across a field where a stag once died. He rode faster, uneasy now. And then he met people on the road, and his unease became something colder, because they were small. Not children, grown men and women, but small somehow, bent, working a field as if every stone were heavy. He had never seen people like this in Ireland. They stopped their work and stared up at him. A tall, shining warrior on a white horse, in clothes from another age, with a harp at his throat and the old proud bearing of the Fianna. To them, he might as well have ridden out of a dream. "Friends," Oisín called down, "I'm looking for the hall of Fionn mac Cumhaill, the Fianna. Can you point me the road?" And at the name, something strange happened. The villagers looked at one another, and then, softly, in wonder, they began to murmur. "Fionn," one old man repeated, as if tasting a word from a song. "Fionn mac Cumhaill, the Fianna," he shook his head slowly. "Stranger, those are names from the old tales, from long, long ago. There's no hall of Fionn, not for hundreds of years." Hundreds of years. Stay with that word landing on him. Not 3, not 30, hundreds. The ground of his whole life tilting under a single sentence from a stranger in a field. He felt the cold of it before he understood it. "No," Oisín said. "No, you're mistaken. I hunted with Fionn 3 years ago, by Loch Lane. I am his son, I am Oisín." And the old man's eyes went very wide and very soft, and he said, "Oisín, the poet. Yes, we still sing of you. We still sing of you. Do you hear what that means?" He was not a man returning home, He was a story that had walked out of the songs, a name on the lips of strangers, a ghost from an age that everyone he loved had lived and died inside. He could not stay to hear more. He turned the horse and rode, hard, blind, away from the field, toward the one place he had to see with his own eyes. The hill of Allen, his father's hall. He had to know, he had to. He knew the way, even after centuries. His body remembered the road his mind could not believe. Over the river, past the standing stones, up the long green slope, to the hill where the greatest hall in Ireland had always stood. He crested the hill, and he stopped, and the last of his hope went out of him like a breath in cold air. Because there was no hall, there was no fire, there were no hounds, no spears, no laughter, no Fianna. There was only a ruin, a few green-furred mounds of fallen stone, the black scar of a hearth cold for centuries, nettles where the high table had stood, sheep grazing where the Fianna had once sung. Nothing was left. Oisín sat on the white horse in the middle of the ruin and could not move. This was the climax of all his longing, the home he had crossed the world to see. And it was grass and stone and silence, and it had been for longer than he could hold in his mind. He thought of his father raising his hand on the shore. Be careful how you come back. Now he understood. Too late, the way we always understand these things. There was no coming back. The place he wanted had ended an age ago. He had simply been too happy to notice. And here's the cruelest part of his bargain. In the land of the young, nothing he loved would ever be taken from him. But he had left it. And in leaving, he had let everything he loved here be taken instead. Both worlds, and he belonged fully to neither. For a long time he simply grieved up there among the stones. He let himself feel all 300 years of loss at once, though they did not yet show on his unaged face. The body of a young man, the grief of an old one. At last, the white horse stirred beneath him, as if to remind him there was still one thread holding him to a life. Niamh, the orchard, the children, the golden land where time could not reach him. He could still go back. He had not lost everything. Not yet. So he gathered himself. He wiped his face. He turned the horse west again, toward the sea, toward the road, back to the only home he had left. He would go back to Niamh. He would tell her she had been right, and he would never look east again. He had the way home. He had the horse. He had the rule. Still kept. His feet had never touched the ground. All he had to do was ride back to the sea and let the white horse carry him across. So close. He was so close. And that is exactly when stories spring their trap. Not in the dark fortress, not on the wild sea, but here, on an ordinary road, on the way home, when the worst seems already over. Watch the road now, watch the field beside it. Up ahead, in a field by the road, a group of men were struggling. Small men, like all the men of this new age. They were trying to move a great fallen stone, a gray boulder half sunk in the mud, and it was beating them. Oisín reined in to watch, and the old instinct rose in him, the same one that had carried him into the giant's fortress. These were his people even now, even centuries late. They were struggling, and he was strong enough to help. One of them saw him and called out, "Stranger, you're a big man, and that's a fine, strong horse. Would you lend us your arm? This cursed stone won't shift, and there's 6 of us already broken on it." And here is the whole story, balanced on a single moment. Oisín remembered the rule. Do not touch the ground. He knew it. He did not need to get down. He was strong enough to lift the stone from the saddle, leaning, without ever setting foot on the earth. So he leaned down from the saddle, low over the boulder, and got one strong hand beneath its mossy edge, his feet still safe in the stirrups, the rule still kept. He braced, he heaved, the great stone groaned and shifted and began, at last, to roll. The men cheered. The stone rolled free, and in that very instant of triumph, with the rule still kept, with home still ahead, the red girth strap of the saddle, 300 years old and stretched too far, snapped clean in two. The saddle slid. Oisín grabbed for the horse's mane and missed, and for one long, slow, terrible heartbeat he hung in the air above the field, between the safe horse and the forbidden ground, with nothing left to hold. And then he fell. Down past the stone, down to the wet green grass of Ireland, and his shoulder, his hip, his bare hand, all of him touched the forbidden ground at last. The rule was broken. In a single quiet instant, 300 years came home. The watching men cried out, because what they saw they would tell of for the rest of their lives. The tall golden warrior struck the ground and changed before their eyes, in the space of one held breath. The copper gold hair went white as frost. The strong, straight back curved and folded. The smooth skin cracked into 1,000 lines. The mighty arms shrank to thin, trembling sticks. 3 centuries, all the years he had escaped, found his body at once. When it was over, there was no warrior in the field. There was only a very, very old man, frail, white-bearded, blind-eyed in the bright day, lying in the mud where a young man had fallen a moment before. And the white horse, Neve's horse, the road home, the last thread to the land of the young, reared once, looked back at the old man with its great dark eyes, and was gone, up into the air, west, over the hills, toward the sea. Gone. That was the moment the road home closed forever. No horse, no way across the sea, no going back to Neve or the orchard, or his glowing daughter. The land of the young was lost to him now as completely as Ireland's past. He was simply, finally, here. Maybe this is the part that stays with you. Not the magic, the smallness of it. One kind act, one old strap, 1 inch of forbidden ground. A whole life lost not to a villain, but to a moment of helping someone lift a stone. The small men crept closer, afraid. They had asked a shining stranger for help, and watched him crumble into a dying old man in the time it takes to gasp. They did not understand it, but they did not run either. They knelt down beside him. One of them lifted the old man's head from the mud. Another brought water. And Oisín, blinking up at these small, kind, ordinary faces of a new age, found that he could still speak. Faint, cracked. But there. "What year is this?" he whispered. They told him. And the number meant nothing to him, and everything at once, a number from a world he had never lived to see. He closed his eyes. "Then it's true," he said. "I have outlived them all. I have outlived them all." Sit with that for a moment, gently, the way you'd sit with an old man by a fire. Everyone he had ever loved on this side of the sea, his father, his friends, every face from every feast, long, long gone, and he, somehow, still here to know it. But notice what these strangers did not do. They did not laugh, they did not back away. They saw a broken old man who had spoken the names of the Fianna, and they treated him as something precious, because in their world, those names were holy. For 300 years, the people of Ireland had been singing about Oisín, about Fianna and the Fianna, and the great hunts and the songs by the fire. The old warrior had become a legend they loved, and now the legend was lying, dying in their field. They did not know what to do with such a person, a man out of the old songs, a man older than any grandfather's grandfather. So they did the only thing they could think of. They carried him to the one man wise enough to understand strange and holy things. For the world had changed in more than years while Oisín was away. New people had come to Ireland with a new faith and new ways of telling what was holy. And at the heart of that new world stood a quiet man in a gray robe. His name was Patrick. Patrick had spent his life crossing this island, telling people about his God. He had seen many strange things, and feared very few of them. So when the villagers laid a withered ancient stranger at his gate, he did not flinch. He knelt down to look. "Who is this?" Patrick asked, and the villagers told him, half afraid he wouldn't believe them. A warrior who fell from a white horse, who aged 300 years in a moment, who spoke the names of Fianna and the Fianna as if he had hunted with them yesterday. Patrick looked back down at the old man, and the old man looked up at him, at the gray robe, the wooden cross, the shaved head, at everything new and strange about this age. 2 men from 2 different worlds, meeting on the ground between them. "Old father," Patrick said gently, "you've come a long way, and from very far back. Let us take you in. There's a fire, and a bed, and food, and rest. Whatever you are, you're welcome here. Come inside." So they carried Oisín inside out of the gray day and set him by the fire on a bed of soft woven rushes. And for the first time since he had fallen, the old man let himself rest. He had stopped falling. He had landed, at last, somewhere warm. He slept, long and deep, the way you sleep after grief. And while he slept, Patrick sat by him and watched and wondered. Here was a living door into the lost world, a man who had walked beside the heroes of the old songs, What might he know? What might he say? When Oisín woke, the fire had burned low and the hut was warm and dim. Patrick was still there, and the old man, looking at him, said the thing that would shape all the days he had left. "You want to know?" he said. "About them, about the Fianna. I can see it in you." "I do," Patrick admitted. "The old tales are everywhere in this land. We sing them, even those of us who follow the new way. But no one living has ever seen the men in them. And you knew them. You were one of them. Tell me, old father, were they real?" And something kindled in the old man's clouded eyes. A small bright thing that had not been there since he fell, because here at last was a reason to still be alive. Not to go home, he could never go home, but to carry home in words to someone who would listen. "Real," Oisín said, "more real than this fire. Sit, Patrick, sit, and I will tell you, not as a song you half remember. As a man who was there, I will give you the Fianna while I still have breath, and you will keep them after I am gone." And here is the strange gift hidden inside Oisín's whole sad story. He lost his home twice, once to time, once to the sea. But because he lived and because he spoke, the home he lost did not vanish. It became words, and words, it turns out, can outlast even 300 years. So the old man and the monk began their long conversation, night after night by the fire, the pagan and the Christian, the last of the Fianna and the first of the New Age. Two worlds, talking softly across the space between them, trying to understand each other. They did not always agree, far from it. Patrick spoke of heaven and humility, Oisín spoke of hunts and feasts and the wild free joy of the Fianna, and could not see why his lost friends should not be remembered as gloriously as any saint. They argued, gently, often. But under the arguing, something rare was growing. Respect, two men who could not have been more different, each refusing to dismiss the other's world. And out of those long firelit nights came the stories that would carry Oisín and Fianna and all the Fianna down to us. To this very night, to you. So let's sit by that fire too, on the nights Oisín told his stories. The wind outside, the embers glowing, an ancient voice rising and falling. Let it carry you, the way it carried Patrick, gently down towards sleep. "Let me tell you of my father first," Oisín said. Fionn mac Cumhail, tall as a doorway, with a beard like winter, but it was never his size men remembered. It was his wisdom, and how he came by it was the strangest thing of all. As a boy, he served an old poet by a river. They were cooking a salmon, the salmon of knowledge that had eaten the 9 hazelnuts of wisdom. Whoever first tasted it would know everything there was to know. A blister rose on the cooking fish. Young Fionn pressed it down with his thumb and burned himself and put his thumb in his mouth to ease it, and so it was a boy, not the old poet, who tasted the salmon first. Wisdom went to him by accident. Ever after, when Fionn needed to know a hidden thing, he had only to put that thumb between his teeth, and the knowing would come. That was my father, a great warrior, who carried all his deepest wisdom in a childhood burn. Patrick listened and did not interrupt. Whatever he believed about old pagan magic, he could hear the love in the old man's voice. And love, Patrick knew, was worth listening to, whatever god it came wrapped in. "Tell me of the Fianna themselves," Patrick asked softly. "How did a man become one of you?" And the old eyes lit again. "Ah," said Oisín, "that was no small thing. We did not take just anyone. A man had to be tested hard. He had to stand in a pit to his waist, with only a shield, while 9 men cast spears at him, and not be wounded. He had to run beneath a branch no higher than his knee, and leap over one level with his brow, all at full sprint. And then there was the test I loved best," Oisín said, and for a moment the old voice was almost young. He had to know the poetry, 12 books of it by heart, for we held that no man should bear a spear unless he could also bear a song. A man could bear a spear only if he could also bear a song. Patrick repeated the line slowly, turning it over. "That is well said, old father. We are not so different, your Fianna and my brothers. We too think a man should carry more than a weapon." And so it went, night after night. Oisín gave Patrick the great hunts, the chase of the enchanted boar across 3 kingdoms, the white stag that led the Fianna into the other world and back, the hounds that were once human and ran with grief in their eyes. He gave him the feasts, the long oak tables, the harpers, the boasting and the laughter that went on till the fire sank to coals. the way 100 hard men could become, for one warm night, as gentle as children listening to a tale. And as he spoke, the old man's face changed. The lines softened, the clouded eyes shone. He was not in the little hut by the fire anymore. He was back on the green hills of his youth, young again, running with his friends under a sun 300 years set. That is what stories do, isn't it? For a little while they give us back what time has taken. Oisín could not ride home across the sea, but every night, in words, he could ride home across the years. And that was almost enough. But almost is not all. And when the tales ended each night and the fire sank, the old grief would come back, because the people in the stories were gone, and remembering them so vividly only made the empty hut around him feel emptier still. One night Patrick found him weeping quietly in the dark. "Old father," he said, "what grieves you so? You have lived longer than any man. You have seen wonders no one else will ever see." And Oisín shook his white head. "That is exactly why I weep," he said. "I have seen them. I have held them, my father's hand, my wife's bright hair, my daughter with white flowers in her own. And now they are all gone where I cannot follow, and I am the only one left who remembers. To remember everyone, and be remembered by no one. To be the last page of a book whose every other page has crumbled away. That is my grief, Patrick. Not that I will die, that I have already outlived my whole world. Maybe you felt a quiet shadow of that, outliving a place, even while you're still in it, watching a street change, a friend drift, a younger world fill in around you with people who never knew the things you knew. It is its own kind of distance." Patrick had no easy answer. He did not pretend to. He simply sat with the old man in his grief, which is sometimes the only true comfort there is. And after a while he said, gently, "Then let us not let them crumble. Let us write them down." "I have brothers who keep books," Patrick said, "who write with ink on calfskin so that words do not die when the voice that spoke them dies. Give me your father. Give me the Fianna, and I will set scribes to catch every word. They will outlast us both." And something eased in the old man's chest. Not the grief that would never fully leave, but the loneliness of it. Here was a way to make his memory matter, to turn his terrible solitude into a gift for everyone who would come after. So the work began in earnest by day. The scribes came with their calfskin and ink. By night, Oisín talked, and Patrick listened, and the great deeds of the Fianna passed from a dying voice onto pages that would not die. He told them of Diarmuid, the most beautiful of the Fianna, and the love that doomed him, of Caoilte, the swiftest runner, who could outpace the wind, of Gaul, the rival who became a brother. Each name a friend, each tale a small resurrection. And he told them of Oscar, his own son left behind in Ireland when he sailed away, a boy when he last saw him, a great warrior of the Fianna by the time he died. A son Oisín had missed entirely, born here, grown here, lost here, while his father feasted across the sea. That was a hard telling, a father describing a son's whole life that he had not been there to see. But he told it anyway, every detail he could gather, because if he did not, no one ever would. And Oscar, too, deserved to outlast the crumbling pages. The seasons turned outside the little hut. Oisín had come in autumn. Now the first frosts whitened the fields, the same white as his hair. He grew frailer. The tales came slower, but still, each night, he gave Patrick another piece of the lost world. And slowly the arguing between the two men changed. It had begun as a clash, old gods against new, the wild Fianna against humble heaven, but somewhere in all those nights it had softened into something gentler. Two old friends comparing the worlds they loved. "Tell me truly," Patrick said one night, "if you could choose your wild Fianna or my quiet heaven, which would you take?" And Oisín smiled, the old mischief flickering. "Patrick," he said, "I would take one day on the hills with Fianna over an eternity of anything else." Patrick laughed and shook his head and did not argue, because he understood by now that this was not stubbornness. It was love. Oisín was not rejecting heaven. He was simply faithful, to the very end, to the people who had made his life worth living. And isn't that a kind of faithfulness worth keeping? Not to a place or a time, but to the people inside them. Oisín had lost everything else, but he had not let go of his love for them. He carried it, undimmed, 300 years past their graves. There were nights, too, when he spoke of Niamh. Not often. The wound was too tender. But sometimes, when the fire was low and Patrick was quiet, the old man would speak softly of a golden land across the sea, and a woman who glowed at the edges, and a promise he could not keep. "She is still there," he told Patrick, "on the far shore, where nothing ages. She has not grown a day older. She is waiting for a husband who can never come. And our daughter is waiting for the song I promised to bring her. I broke both promises, Patrick, with 1 inch of ground. And here is the quiet ache at the very heart of it. Somewhere across the sea, in a land without time, a young wife and a small bright daughter are still waiting, still hoping, never aging, never grieving fully, never knowing what became of him, perhaps waiting even now." Patrick reached out then and took the old man's frail hand. "You could not have known," he said. "You leaned down to help a stranger lift a stone. There is no kinder reason a man ever lost everything. Whatever waits beyond, I think kindness like that is not forgotten." The old man held that hand a long moment. Then he nodded, slowly. It was the first comfort that had truly reached him since he fell. Not that his loss was undone, nothing could undo it, but that someone in this strange new world had understood it and stayed. After that night, a kind of calm came over Oisín. He kept telling his tales, but the desperation was gone from them now. He was no longer racing death to save his friends. He had handed them safely to the pages. They would live. He could rest. The frost deepened into true winter. Snow came, soft and white, and lay over the green hills of Ireland like a blanket drawn up over a sleeping land. And inside the warm hut, the old man grew quieter and gentler and ready. Before we follow him to that last quiet place, let's pause once more. Let's wonder how a man's 3 short years became 300, because the answer is part of why this story has lasted as long as it has. The old Irish did not measure the other world by our clocks. They believed it ran by a different reckoning entirely. A day there might be a year here. A single feast might span the lives of 100 mortals. Time itself bent at the threshold. It was their way of saying something true about happiness. Have you noticed how the best times of your life take up so little room in memory? A whole golden summer can shrink to a single bright afternoon. Joy does not count the days. That was Oisín's curse and his blessing. And the storytellers had another reason to bend time so far. They were doing what we are doing now, tonight, reaching across centuries, a tale told in one age, carried in voices and on calfskin, to land in the ears of someone 300 years unborn, like you. The real conversation between Oisín and Patrick became a famous old book. The Irish called it the Colloquy of the Ancients, the Acolum, the talking of the old ones, a whole long poem of exactly this, a dying pagan and a patient saint, saving a world in words. So the time slip is not just a sad twist, it is the whole point. The story is about how things survive the centuries. And it survived the centuries, 300 years and far more. All the way to this dark, quiet room and your slow, settling breath. Back in the warm hut, deep winter held the land. Oisín spent his days resting now, more than talking. But he was not unhappy. He had done the great work. The Fianna were safe in ink. He had only to wait, gently, for whatever came next. Patrick came every evening, work or no work. He had stopped thinking of Oisín as a wonder, or a relic, or a soul to be saved. He thought of him simply as a friend, an old, strange, beloved friend near the end of a very long road. They did not always talk now. Often they just sat. The old man would watch the fire, his lips moving sometimes around a name from long ago, and Patrick would watch the old man and let the silence be enough. Some of the best company asks for no words at all. As his body weakened, Oisín's dreams grew vivid. He dreamed of the hunt, of his father's voice, of the golden land. And more, he dreamed of Niamh, of her bright hair, her sea-gray eyes, her hand extended over bright water, the way it had been the very first day. In those dreams he was young again. He could feel the wind off the lake and the strength in his arms, and the simple, certain joy of a life that had not yet gone wrong. And each morning, waking old, he held the dream a moment before letting it go. This is the darkest stretch of his road, in its way, and also the most peaceful. The world he wanted is gone forever. He knows it now, fully, without flinching, and somehow, in that knowing, he has found a quiet he never had even in paradise. One evening he asked Patrick to help him to the door. He wanted to see the sky. So the saint wrapped him warm and walked him slowly out into the cold and held him up, and together they looked at the winter stars over Ireland. "The same stars," Oisín murmured. "After everything, the same stars Fianna and I hunted under. They didn't change, 300 years, and they kept my place for me." And he smiled at the sky like an old man greeting friends who had waited up for him. Maybe that's a comfort you can hold tonight too. Whatever changes, whatever you lose, the stars over you now are the same ones that watched everyone who ever lived. They kept their places. They are keeping yours. They will be there in the morning. Patrick brought him back inside, out of the cold, and settled him by the fire. The old man was tired now in a way that sleep would not mend. They both knew the road was nearly run. Neither of them was afraid. They had said everything that needed saying. "Will you stay?" Oisín asked. "Until I sleep?" And Patrick said, "I will stay all night, old friend, as long as you need. Rest now, I'm here." The fire's warm, there's nothing left to do but rest, and the old man closed his eyes. He drifted, then, in and out of sleep, in and out of memory. Sometimes he was here, by the fire, with Patrick's hand on his. Sometimes he was a boy on the hills. Sometimes he was on a white horse, on bright water, riding toward a golden shore. And here, let's slow right down with him. There is no danger left in this story. No giant, no broken strap, no cruel surprise, only an old man by a warm fire, drifting gently toward rest, held safe by a friend. That is all that is left now. And it is enough. He thought of his daughter, Plur na Mamban, the flower of women. He had promised her a song from Ireland, and lying there by the fire, half dreaming, he found it at last, the song he would have brought her. He hummed it, very softly, into the warm dark. Perhaps in that land where time runs strange, a small girl with flowers in her hair really did hear it. Perhaps a faint, far song reached her across the sea, from a father she had waited for so long. The old stories leave that door open. So let's leave it open too. The night deepened. The fire settled to a low, steady glow. Patrick kept his promise and did not move, his hand still resting on the old man's, watching the slow rise and fall of that ancient chest grow slower and gentler and more peaceful still. In his deepest dream now, Oisín stood once more on the shore of Loch Leyen, young, whole, the hounds around his feet, the mist on the water, and out of the bright lake, just as before, a white horse was rising, and on it, a woman with golden hair. "You came back," Dream Neve said and smiled, and Dream Oisín, young and unbroken, smiled back and reached for her hand across the water. "I told you I would," he said. "I always meant to. I'm sorry it took so long." And their fingers touched. We don't know if that dream was only a dream. The old story doesn't say, but let yourself believe the kind version tonight. That somewhere, somehow, the broken promise was mended, that the long-divided two were not so divided after all. By the fire, Patrick felt the old man's breathing change, not into struggle, into something softer, like a tide going gently out. He tightened his hand, just a little, so that even in sleep his friend would know he was not alone. The line between the dream and the rest grew thin. Oisín was on the bright water now, the golden shore ahead, Nieve's hand in his daughter's song in the air. Everything he had lost was somehow gently gathered back around him, and he was not afraid. Let's stay in that warm dream light with him a while. There's no need to hurry toward what comes next. The fire is low and kind. The hand is held. The golden shore is close. Just breathe, slow and easy, and drift here, where it is gentle. In the waking world, the snow had stopped. The clouds had parted. And the first pale gray of dawn was beginning, far off, at the edge of the eastern sky, the same dawn that had risen over Loch Leyen on the morning all of this began. And as that dawn touched the doorway of the little hut, the old man, in his sleep, on the bright dream water, reached the golden shore. The horse stepped onto the grass, and Oisín, after 300 years and a whole long life, came home at last. By the fire, the old chest rose once more, and fell and was still, quietly, without struggle. The way a long day ends, Patrick sat a while longer, holding the hand that had grown still, and watching the dawn fill the doorway with soft, forgiving light. He did not weep, exactly. It was too peaceful for that. He only bowed his head and said a quiet blessing, his own, for his own God, over a man who had loved a different one, Because love, Patrick had decided long ago, does not need to agree to be honored. And so the last of the Fianna was gone, the bridge between the worlds, fallen quietly at the end, but not before he had crossed it one final time, carrying his whole lost world over into words, into pages, into the keeping of those who would come after. They buried him gently. There in the hills he had been born to, under the same stars that had hunted with him. Patrick saw to it himself, and he made sure the grave was marked and the name remembered. Oisín, poet, warrior, the last of the Fianna. But the truest grave Patrick gave him was not in the earth. It was in the books, the accalum, the long conversation. Every tale the old man had poured out by the fire, set down in ink, copied and copied again, passed from hand to hand down the centuries. And that is how a man can outlive even his own death. Oisín lost his world. But he did not let it vanish with him. He spoke it into a form that could not die, and because he did, his father walks, and the Fianna hunt every time someone tells the tale. Including tonight, including now. Because here you are in the dark hearing the names of Fianna and Niamh and Oisín, names first spoken across a fire 1500 years ago. The old man's gift reached even you, the pages held. And maybe that is the kindest answer the story gives to all its grief. Yes, time takes everything. The hall falls, the friends die, the horse runs west and does not return. But love, set into words, can ride back across any number of years. It can reach all the way to you. So if any small loss of your own has been sitting with you tonight, let the old man's story hold it for a while. Whatever has moved on without you, whatever world you've quietly outlived, it is not gone if you still carry it, and carrying it is its own kind of faithfulness. The fire in the little hut burned out, long ago. The monastery is dust. Patrick is 15 centuries gone, but the pages they made together outlasted every stone of it. And on a dark, quiet night, they still do exactly what they were made to do. They keep someone company. Before we let the story rest entirely, let's wonder one last time at how far it traveled to reach you. From a fireside, to a calfskin page, to a printed book, to this quiet room. 1500 years of hands, passing one old story carefully along. This is the strange afterlife of Oisín's tale. Long after Patrick's monks, Irish poets kept telling it. Then Irish exiles carried it across oceans. Then poets in other languages fell in love with it and gave it new voices, new forms, new life. A great Irish poet, long after, wrote a whole long work just on the wanderings of Oisín. Painters painted Niamh rising from the water. Children learned the name of Tír na nÓg before they learned the names of kings. The dying old man by the fire had become immortal after all. Not immortal the way the land of the young had promised. Not a body that never ages. Something better, maybe. A name that will not be let go of. A story people keep choosing to tell. That is the only deathlessness any of us are likely to get. And it is not nothing. And notice, the land of the young is still out there, in all those tellings, still golden, still waiting beyond the western sea, Niamh still on her shore, ageless, watching the water. The story never closes that door, it cannot bear to, and neither, quite, can we. So the wish the old Irish first dreamed, a land with no goodbyes, is still being dreamed tonight by you as you drift towards sleep. The same wish, the same gold light on the same far water. Some longings, it turns out, are simply too kind ever to put down. Let's begin to let the story settle now, the way the fire settled in the hut. We've followed Oisín a long way, the lake, the sea, the golden land, the ruin, the little fire at the end, and now, like him, we can rest. Think back over it, softly, the way you'd turn over a good day before sleep. The white horse on the water, the endless blossom, the cold black fortress, the empty hall, the two old friends by the fire, so much in one life, so very much. And under all of it, one quiet truth to carry into sleep. Time will take its things, as it always does. But the people we love and the days we shared with them are never wholly lost, not while we still hold them and tell of them and keep them warm. The night is deep now. The story has almost finished. There is nothing left for you to do but breathe, slow and easy, and let yourself sink down toward the same gentle rest that took the old man by the fire. Picture the golden shore one last time, the warm light on the water, the waiting land that never ages. Knives hand extended in welcome, and let that image be the soft place your mind rests on as everything else grows quiet and dim. There is no broken strap here, no 300 years, no goodbye. In this last quiet image, the rider and the golden land are simply gently together, whole, at rest, exactly as the kindest version of the story would always have it. The harp that never stops is playing somewhere far off, faint and sweet. The blossom that never falls is drifting on a warm and even air, and the gold light that knows no evening lies soft over everything, asking nothing of you at all. Let your breathing slow to match that even air in, slow, out, slow, like the gentle tide on the golden shore. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to hold, just the warm light and the soft sound and the quiet. The old man found his rest. So can you. He carried his whole long story safely to its harbor, and so, tonight, can you set yours down? Whatever you were holding when this began, let the gold light hold it for you now, just for tonight. We're nearly at the end of the telling now. The fire is almost out. The golden shore is soft and dim. Stay with that fading warmth a moment longer, as it loosens and gentles, and lets you drift further down towards sleep. Let the story carry you the last small way. The way the white horse carried Oisín without effort, without fear, over still bright water, toward a shore where you can finally rest. You don't have to stay awake to reach it, just let go. And so at the very last, the white horse reaches the golden shore. Its glowing hooves touch the soft grass. The long ride is over, the waiting is over. Oisín, home at last, steps down gently this time into a land where nothing he loves can ever be taken again. Niamh is there, glowing softly, ageless, exactly as he left her. She does not ask where he has been, she only takes his hand, the way she did on the very first day, and smiles, and says the words he crossed 2 worlds to hear. You're home now, for as long as you want to be. And from down the blossom-lined road, a small figure comes running. Golden copper hair, white flowers, sea-gray eyes, his daughter, the flower of women, running to her father at last, arms wide, and the song he promised her finally in the air. He kneels, he gathers her up. He holds his whole golden family close in the warm, unending light, and the harp plays, and the blossom drifts, and not one single goodbye remains in all that bright and gentle country. Whatever else was true, let this be true too, tonight. The gold light lies soft over all of it. The harp plays on, the family is together, and whole and home. And there we can leave them at rest in the land of the young, where it is always a warm and gentle evening, and no one ever has to say goodbye. Let's rest now in what the story leaves behind, not the events, the meaning that settles after them, soft as ash after a fire has gone gentle. At its heart, this is a story about time, about how it runs faster than we think, about how a happiness can swallow the years whole and leave us blinking at a changed world. The land of the young promised an escape from that, a place with no clocks, no winters, no goodbyes, and the story does not call it evil. It only shows the price hidden inside the gift. Because to step out of time is also to step out of your life. The orchard was perfect, but it was not home, and the heart, it turns out, would rather ache at home than rest perfectly anywhere else. There's the first quiet lesson. A life without loss is also a life without home. The very thing that makes the mortal world hurt, that it ends, is the thing that makes it ours. Then there is the rule. Do not touch the ground. Every old tale has one. And they are never really about the rule. They are about how the thing we are warned of finds us anyway. And notice how it found him, not through a sin, through a kindness. He leaned down to help a stranger lift a stone, the gentlest fall any hero ever took. There is something tender in that. The story refuses to punish him for a flaw. It lets him fall for his best quality. As if to say, even our kindness is woven into our fate. Then there's the deepest theme of all, outliving your world. Oisín's true grief was never dying. It was being the last to remember, the final keeper of a vanished time. We meet small versions of that all our lives. The street that changes, the friends who drift, the slow sense of becoming a stranger in a place you never left. Oisín simply felt it all at once. But the story does not leave him alone in that grief. It sends him Patrick, a listener, someone from the new world willing to honor the old one, and that changes everything. Because here's the turn the story makes. Grief that is witnessed becomes something else, not erased, witnessed, and a memory that is spoken aloud and written down stops being a burden and becomes a gift. That is why the meeting of pagan and saint matters so much. It is not a battle of who is right, it is a model of how two worlds can keep each other. By listening, by writing it down. And so a story that could have ended in despair ends instead in keeping. The world Oisín lost was not saved from time, but it was saved from being forgotten. Those are not the same thing. The second is the one we can actually give. Think of the white horse too. It was always the thread home. And the moment Oisín touched the ground, it rose and left. The way home and the broken rule were the same instant. There's a hard truth folded in there. You cannot keep one foot in the timeless world and one in this one. At some point the ground claims you. And maybe that is not only a loss. To be claimed by the ground is, after all, to truly belong somewhere. And the land of the young itself, what is it? Really, not just a fairy country. It is every place we long to return to and cannot. Childhood, a lost love. A time before the change. We all have a Tir na Nog across our own western sea. The story's gift is that it lets that land stay golden and lets us come home anyway. It does not make us choose forever. It only asks us to know which shore we actually live on and to live there fully. So carry these few quiet things from the old tale. That time runs fast through happiness. That kindness can cost us and is still worth it. That the ground claims us and that is also belonging. And above all this, that what we love is never wholly lost while someone still remembers it and tells of it and keeps it warm. Oisín proved that. So, in your own small way, can you? And so the old man's words did exactly what he hoped. They outlasted him. Let's follow them, softly, down the long centuries to where they reach you tonight. The Conversation by the Fire became a real and famous book. The Irish called it the Acalam na Senorach, the Colloquy of the Ancients, a dying pagan and a patient saint, saving a whole lost world in verse. Monks copied it, then copied the copies. For 1,000 years, hands in cold scriptoriums kept Oisín alive, letter by careful letter, so that the names of Fianna and the Fianna would never quite fall silent. Then the storytellers took him further. In village homes across Ireland, by peat fires on long winter nights, people told of Oisín and Niamh without ever opening a book. The tale lived in voices just as it began. When the Irish left for distant shores, they carried him in their pockets. In memory, in song, Tir na Nog crossed every ocean the Irish crossed. A homeland's dream of a land you can never quite return to. Fitting for a people far from home. Poets fell in love with him. One of Ireland's greatest wrote a whole long poem on the wanderings of Oisín. Niamh became a figure painters painted, dreamers dreamed of, a golden rider rising endlessly from bright water. The name Tir na Nog slipped into everyday speech, a perfect, ageless, longed-for place. Children learn it now in storybooks. It has named schools and songs and ships, a whole culture's shorthand for the home we ache for and cannot keep. And the bridge between worlds that Oisín became, the old faith and the new, sitting together at one fire, became a model too. A reminder that a culture need not destroy its past to grow. It can write it down, it can carry it forward. So the dying old man who feared being forgotten became one of the least forgotten figures Ireland ever made. 1,500 years on, his name is still spoken softly in the dark, to comfort strangers he could never have imagined. Strangers like you. That was his real homecoming, not across the sea. Here, in the memory of everyone who ever heard his tale and held it gently. Tonight, you are part of that long, kind keeping, and now we can let him rest. The story is told now. The fire is low. There is nothing left to do but rest. The way the old man rested, gently and without fear. Let the gold shore drift somewhere behind your eyes, the warm light, the calm water. No goodbyes there, only soft, even unhurried rest. And when you're ready, there will be another story waiting. Next time, somewhere colder, older, a different fire on a different shore. Something is waiting out there in the dark. You can almost hear it, but not tonight. Tonight, you only have to sleep. We'll be here with the next one when you're ready. No hurry, the stories keep, the way they always have. The same stars Oisín loved are over you now. They kept his place. They are keeping yours, steady and quiet and kind. Let your breathing slow in, soft, out, soft, like a calm tide on a gold shore. There is nowhere to be, nothing to hold. Whatever you are carrying tonight, set it down on the gold shore, let the warm light hold it, just until morning. The white horse is at rest, the gold light is soft, the long road is over, and so is your day. You can let it all go now. Sleep now. The stars are keeping watch. The story will keep too. Good night, and rest gently all the way until morning.